let's talk about Age of Isolation. Here we are in the pandemic, 2021. Uh, this album, I'm hearing a little ELO, a little 70s Elton John, some Paul McCartney, some Steve Miller, but mostly it's an early Genesis record to me, is what I hear.
I think they're all early Genesis now. Um,
This one, most of all,
yeah,
really does sound like a Genesis record with all the whistles and bells of early Genesis. And by the
yeah.
way, I love Abacab. I did want to point to
I
look.
love Abcab. I love Duke.
This is not that. We're talking about early, pre-Abacab, late Peter Gabriel or early Phil Collins type
That's
stuff.
the best.
Yeah.
I came in. A neighbor died who had a ton of vintage synths in his basement. The daughter sold me these carcasses. I put them back together, and they sound incredible. I was so blown away by these early '70s synthesizers. They each felt like a new musician had entered the band, and they colorized everything. They weren't samples. They weren't computerized. With a computer and a sampler with a keyboard, everything it always sounds the same. And someone in Indonesia has the same sound. When you put up something that smokes and glows, and you leave the room, it's changed tonality and tuning. I was inspired by the synths, and that album came out of that. And it's all the subject matters about: do we need each other? COVID says we don't. Everything's Zoom. And I came out feeling, yeah, I think we do need each other. And so that album has a definite purpose.
Yeah.
Uh,
That
and,
explains.
and I think early Genesis is dystopian and dark, and that was the feel that you got probably.
I have a friend, John McAvoy, great bass player. He was in a band called the Vandalias. I don't know if you're familiar with that. He's a music encyclopedia and someone I turn to a lot for questions. And I asked him, what happened in the early 80s when all of a sudden everything just kind of turned. And he said, the DX7.
Oh, the DX7,
Yeah, right.
because everything was so expensive. I think there was a Polymoog in '75 that cost the equivalent of $27,000, and it had 8 sounds built in and one extra sound. And so they were still building this model with chips and Curtis chips and hand point-to-point soldering. And then FM synthesis comes out. It weighs nothing. It costs $300. It does everything. You can't change it. It really is kind of like the first sampler, where every DX7 sounds the same. I
Yeah.
hated it. Um,
And then all the records sound the same.
and all the records sound like Miami Vice or Seinfeld bass. The original synths, when they warm up, they change. Um, every note's not in tune. So
Yeah.
there's that Beach Boys out of tune 5 cents bass up, 5 cents piano down, and it's such an organic, awesome thing to play. It will change your career to play a vintage synth. So it's not DX7. It's not FM synthesis for sure.
Yeah, that's really neat. So Age of Isolation is the song I'm choosing from this album. And it's an example of what you were talking about when you mentioned John Anderson's lyrics, that they don't mean much on their own, but when they're sung, they give you a sense of what the song's about.
Exactly. There is lines that can hold water and there are lines that can't, but you put it together and they all hold water. So I love songs like that. Sometimes I come in with stuff that's not right, and Michael, the keyboardist, is like, "Can you change this lyric? It would make so much sense." And Dan goes, "No, don't do that.
Yeah.
It's fluid. It's like speaking in tongues." And that song feels like that, and it leaves you hanging. And for me, that I love that. That to me is the anti-hit, a little buttoned up, perfect thing. It's just warbly and open-ended, and it always sounds different. So that's the universe we like to live in for sure.
Yeah. The movement you need is on your shoulder. That's John Lennon stopping Paul from
Exactly.
perfectly good, meaningless lyric.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay, so we moved to Genius Killer. Now, again, this one starts like one album and then moves into another. And I want to tell you something funny. It starts with an ELO song. I mean, this first song it's just an ELO song. As I'm driving my car listening to this ELO song, I look at the cover with a snake, and you're looking straight down the snake. And I'm like, oh my God, that looks exactly like the ELO spaceship.
That's by accident. Also, I really went Roy Orbison, which is ELO.
Uh-huh.
So I listen to a
Right.
lot of Roy Orbison. I mean, minors going to majors, back to minors.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and I love and AOLO, obviously the front, and we just took it to the AOLO place. But the original chordal stuff is Roy Orbison. The snake and that we racked our brains over it, but it ended up being like Genius Killer, Library being swallowed. and it just made a lot of sense. I don't see any other things that reference, but I'm glad you found something.
Yeah, it was striking to me. I'm looking like, oh my God, it's the spaceship.
Yeah, and it works kind of with round stuff like spin, records and Facebook things. Anytime there's a round thing, we put that in.
Yeah.
That's a fun song.
It's my favorite album in terms of your lyrics. I found it a very encouraging record.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
I'm an optimist.
And so now I want to get to my very favorite of your songs, and that is a first 5 seconds.
Aha!
I'd like to sing the praises of this song if I may. It really is, I mean, look, I love all your songs, but in terms of songs that grab me by the heart
Yeah.
and rip it out for what and for reasons I can't define, this is the one. I'm like, my heart just starts beating and I stop as I listen. And it happened to me the first time I listened to this song, and it was no accident because I listened to it again. And I want to tell the audience what you did from a crafts point of view because I think it may be relevant. You start with a 5/8 lick, do 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 do, and you overlay that with a 5/4 beat. Boppa 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 boppa. So what happens is you get this strange phase going on where the 5/8 lick is only halfway done. Oh, sorry, the 5/4 beat is only halfway done when the 5/8 comes in. And so it has a strange sort of hiccup to it. And, this is just craft and this is just math, but no, it's not. It works in a way that just sort of rips through my consciousness, just tears me up. And and I understand what the song's about as a result of that crazy math. I don't, I don't know what else to say. It's just thank you for that song. It's really beautiful.
Yeah, that's a collaboration. Michael came up with the original keyboard organ thing. And we have this thing once in a so the song is based off losing your mojo, losing your inspiration. And I think that you're responding to that because you said that you're having a disconnect. Michael has been writing less and less each record. I think soundtrack he had 3 or 4 things and he had a fifth, but it didn't make it. And by this point, he really didn't have that much. And I beg him to write more. I'm like, that's who you are. For me, that's my narrative of him is a songwriter, but he sees himself as a book writer and a chef and a traveler. And so he sent me that thing and I loved it. And then I imprinted, the halftime for not the classic 5/4 onto it. So it's really us working together. And then the lyric is about the first time I saw him on stage and I was blown away. And I'm asking him, where's that guy?
Mhm.
And I knew who you were in the first 5 seconds I met you. You knew who I was in the first 5 seconds. We can't fake each other out. We can't tell each other we're not those people. And the same goes for relationships. That chemistry hits. You meet when you're teenagers or whatever. You're married for 50 years, and in the final moments, you still feel those tingling. And that's the first 5 seconds. And so I'm basically pleading to Mike to find himself, to find the guy he lost because we need him. And that's the lyric. It's kind of pleading to a good friend. This is who you are, not the one you tell yourself. And we need that. So, and what's cool is the music is so intense and the music is beckoning for his real self. The band is crying out for him to come back to us in full form through the music. So I appreciate that song hit you.
It's really neat. And, this is a great illustration of what you said. You weren't crafting a hit. You weren't trying to be awesome. You were just expressing yourself. And this one really shot through and it just happens to nail it because it's such a beautiful expression of honesty. You don't even have to know what it means. It's
Yeah.
just, yeah. Well, so we arrived at Coney Island Kid. This is what you described as trying to remember what it was like to be a kid. And it's interesting to be near the end of our journey and to go back. We talked a little bit early. I found this a very dark record. And you mentioned that this is like where you discovered a lot of your patterns in life were started so early. We think about how the Mommyheads have this consistency, even while there's differences, it's really not like REM where the band goes through this crazy change and arc. It's the Mommyheads, it's Adam Elk. There's this weird pattern that reasserts itself again and again and again. So, what's going on with this record? It seems actually very unpleasant and unhappy, but you weren't, were you?
I knew I wanted to get out. I think every kid wants to get out. Nobody wants to live in their parents' house forever.
Yeah.
The neighbors will think he's weird. um, I find Coney Island and Sheepshead Bay and Outer Brooklyn to be very abrasive and cold and sweaty in the summer, unforgiving. Not a lot of you have to search for those little nooks and crannies. When The Warriors came out, it felt right. When Escape from New York came out, it felt right.
Mhm.
Um, Coney, an amusement park where you're supposed to have fun by the ocean in a city environment, in an urban environment, it's just ridiculous. The smell of urine is just omnipresent. And so when I think back to my childhood, I had a great childhood, but that underlying dystopian stress was always there. And I've been running from it ever since in some weird way. And so I tried with this record to go back to it and start over and have a little wisdom about it. I felt the same again. I put myself in my childhood room. We could see Manhattan from our living room. We were up high, and it was the Emerald City and so cool, and I couldn't wait to get out of that area. Most of my friends, their dream job was to shuck oysters at Randazzo's, and my sister went to Lincoln High School, and you threat of getting beat up was constantly. I mean, it was an intense, Goodfellas type upbringing. But there's a lot of culture. The people are amazing. They're quality, salt of the earth people. So, this record is going back and realizing, and putting a groove to it and some melodies. And there's hope. But it's therapy, really. It's where did it all begin? What was I imprinted with that made me this?
The song that caught my attention was the song called Onset Ma. And at first I thought it had to be an anagram, so I was re-scrambling the letters and came up with no mates and things like that.
Ah,
Only to discover that it's a place, Massachusetts. Onset.
yeah. No, that's Michael's song, and it fit perfectly because that was kind of his seashore experience. And it's so haunting, that song.
Yeah, doesn't that place have a strange history of there's a weird thing that happened there 100 years ago.
I think so. Mike knows more, but there's
Yeah.
some history there. And then he had his own history,
All right.
which is in that song. All I feel like is it's like a Russian doll. Like people keep going, you keep going into the picture, and it's just us playing, and it's just unadorned but impactful.
Yeah.
It's a nice balance to the main track, Coney Island Kid. When I finished writing Coney Island Kid, I was exhausted. I felt like I put everything into one song. It has the front, it has the groove, it's got the big chorus, it has the guitar solo, the epic middle. I was like, I can't do any more music now. And Onset was nice because it's counterbalanced. So,
Well, we've arrived at the last album so far, and that's One Eyed Band. Uh, you talked about this album and the art with the guys holding up the eye and how it's kind of, again, it's a double thing. It's like one-eyed is kind of myopic, but it's also focused. It's an interesting record. It's a good record. I can't wait to talk about the song, but first I want to hear you talk about the record.
we all love this record. Um, it's not one thing or another. It's just us. It feels simple. It feels like hopeful. The references aren't too thick, and it's fun. It's a fun listen. This one. We're not trying to prove anything, and it actually radio really responded. We were top 10 in college and community radio, which means you get played once an hour that week or the weeks around that top 10. So we had our biggest success in some regard with this record.
That's great.
And the first two tracks got played a lot. One is I'm Trying to Be the Fix with the first song, Chicken Soup. And the next one's disco. It's like psychotic Earth, Wind, and Fire.
You talking about Life is a Dream?
Yeah, and it's just,
Song. Okay, that's the song I was going to say. It's the usual Mommyhead lyrics about writing, creating in spite of this and that. But then you find you're in a full-on disco song with pew, pew, pew.
yeah, yeah.
It's like, what the hell's happening here?
There was a moment I was downstairs and I'm making music and my wife's cooking and we gave a look to each other like, can you believe this is, all these years later, like, what are we doing? We felt like automatons. Like when you're not in your body and you've just walked a mile and you're like, how did I get here? Or you drove and and that song is kind of like that, like where you wake up and you're like, how did I get here? Where was I? Uh, but yet you have responsibility. Kids are waiting. Like I got to pick up racquetball and soccer and so you wake up, you have the thing, the mind blow. Oh, I'm here right now, and then you go back into the routine, and you lose time again. And that's what that song's about. It's the life is insane.
Life is a dream that you can only reach with your heart in your hands and the wool pulled over your eyes. Right about what we were talking about the necessity of delusion.
Yeah, like blindfolded, and how can I help you? Where do I put this love I feel? I like that chorus. That's a good. I like that lyric.
It's good.
If you could sum it up in like 5 seconds in a chorus, God bless. Um,
So
yeah,
you
that's a fun
said,
one.
uh, yeah, it's there's so many nice grooves in this record, and it's really great that you can stay fresh after so many albums. Remarkable is the word. I mean, you said you guys know each other, you like each other. It's a wonderful thing. It's always amazing when four men can get together and agree on anything coherent, but I mean, it's a special thing you have here.
Look, I'm a compulsive writer, as I said. I do it, and I've said this before. I know Andy Partridge did it to stay sane. It's a crutch. It's can be your worst nightmare for relationships. It could be the thing that saves your relationships. It's just something that I do. It's that it's that compulsive thing. But to be compulsive and write music and know that you have three other guys that get it and can't wait to listen and have ideas for it, that's an amazing thing. And so I like I'm pulled through the haunted house of completing a song. I'm pulled through it with a smile on my face as things are coming out going, ah! I'm like, no problem. You got a job to do. I hope they pay you well. You get health insurance going, meh, because I'm gonna make it through this haunted house. I've got guys at the end that I'm gonna play with. And that's life and that's the artistic process. Um, if I didn't have these guys to have these songs end up with, I would probably get stuck in the haunted house being freaked out, pissing my pants. So um, it's fun, you know, it's fun.
You said the world probably doesn't need us. It doesn't need most music, but we need us. That's what you're talking about here. Keeping sane, staying sane through your art.
Yeah. When you look at a Van Gogh, he needed to do that. He's whirling the world around with yellows and oranges. What you're seeing is this desperation and this intensity pouring out of this guy he probably had mental issues, definitely. But what you're getting is the intensity more than even the craft for him. And for us, I feel like as a group of guys, we're similar. We get into a room and we start twirling oranges and yellows, until we have this like you're like that's the wind. But they're each like in terms of the picture 10 feet in diameter each stroke. But you feel the weather pattern from this band. And if we can be lucky enough to get it on tape or whatever you call it, and you'll feel something. And I think that those are the bands I like to listen to. The Attractions. When I listen to Miami Is True, when I listen to this year's Model, Armed Forces, yada yada yada, I can feel them churning the way Van Gogh did with those oranges and yellows. Um, Everyone is lockstep is just adding a new dimension to the color and the feel. And it's just life affirming.
Yeah. Uh, so you've come to terms with your place in the world of music, and you've even seen the benefits of your so-called missed shot. You wouldn't have recorded these albums had you had the success you did. You really see it as kind of a blessing in disguise. And yet I still wonder in my heart if you're content with this, because when I listen to your records, there's a part of me that's going, damn, King Crimson, Mommyheads, everybody knows King Crimson. Why not the Mommyheads? What's going on here? It's almost like that movie about the guy that wakes up in the world and nobody's heard of the Beatles, right? And he has to rewrite all their songs. Does this piss you off? Or would you like, I know you don't want to be famous. I know you don't want to play amphitheaters anymore, but don't you feel like you ought to be part of the conversation?
I would love to be part of the conversation, but in order to be part of a conversation, you have to enter a societal cage, and you don't have the keys anymore. And I'm afraid of that, entering that cage. I think the art would suffer. And so to sum it up, no, I think success is the worst thing possible for someone who creates. In order to create, you got to just empty everything out. If you're emptying it out and there's a monetary thing that you have to worry about, how many tickets are we going to sell and how many downloads, and it's the same with tastemakers now, where they're taking pictures of their lunches and every move they make, and they've got to document it, and their followers have to go, cool, I love it. They're caught in this circle of approval. We don't have that at all. So I feel completely cage free in this band. And I feel it completely cage free that our timing was off, our music is out of sync, and that we're not part of any conversation. I think it's wonderful, because I do think at some point we will be part of the conversation. It could be tomorrow, it could be 30 years from now, it could be 1,000 years from now. And we could be the biggest band on the planet then. But we will have made the music we want to make that's completely cage free. Just the way you want your eggs and your chickens and your food to be cage free, I want music that's cage free. Some people went to great lengths. Neil Young went to great lengths to keep the cage off. But he also suffered a lot. We're not suffering. We're just making art. So success is not even a conversation for us. Our successes are just, did you like that groove? Did you like that song? Did you like that vocal performance? The successes are different and valued different, and they happen differently. And I would say not 100%, but 99.9.9, we're fine. We have day jobs. It's the best scenario ever. We make our money from something else, and we make our art over here. The worst thing that ever happened to art was money was involved. That's the worst thing ever. You get crap.
Yeah.
King Crimson made no money. No money. Only up until recently, where they're selling at amphitheaters and playing the old tunes, that they are start of turning a profit. Fripp was quoted as saying, all the way till they broke up in 83, 84, it was a losing proposition. They made that art. And why we love Fripp is he's so steadfast. You will not stop him. No money, no problem. He's making those records. So most of the music we love was in spite of the societal pressures and the cages they had to bypass and find keys for, pick the locks of those cages. Yeah, some other person may say it's a shame nobody knows us. I don't care. You know us. That's all that matters.
Well, I want to one more question. You and I, our mindsets in this whole interview have really been in the past 40 years, but the election just happened and the world has changed utterly, and it may never be going back. So all of a sudden, we're living in a very different world that we haven't even processed yet. And actually, you say that the world doesn't need us, but now I think it kind of does need us. Maybe for the first times in our lives, we're living in a world where artists are actually going to be necessary, because when things are horrible, they kind of are. So bearing that in mind, what's next?
I agree completely. I think the internet has exacerbated the bad side of human beings. Some good stuff. We're doing this interview now. That's great. But all the bad stuff is coming out. The Pandora's box of our negative intentions are there. Our reactionary, the way we react to things, put him in the slammer, throw away the key, don't need a court, no peers, like everything is just an opinion. For a while, I thought art wasn't needed. I think the 90s till recently, I thought we were superfluous and just dreamers. But then I hear a Supertramp song and I'm like, no, we are needed. So I agree with you. I think we need hope in the discourse and the dialogue. There's no hope. And hope comes from human beings being honest. And good art is honest, is honesty. So I think that, yeah, I think in order for us to gain hope back and trust, no one trusts anything. If you get an email, you think it's a scam. Everything's a scam. So when you hear a song, the song isn't trying to download your bank details to, it's not trying to extort you. A great song is not trying to steal your identity. It's not trying to call you a Democrat or a Republican. It's, a great song just is. It doesn't care if you like it or not. It just wants you to be enriched somehow, piss you off, make you happy. So I completely agree. I think art has more of a place to battle the internet and to battle the divisiveness that we've created. We created, they're worried about AI. I think I'm already worried about AI is just another version of the machine taking over and us looking in the mirror and seeing a distorted image of ourselves. It's already happening. So yeah, I think great art is something that will heal us and bring the communication back on a heart level, heart, soul, and good mind level. So yeah, I'm happy to be an artist. I feel fortunate to make, and we're going to make a record here as long as we can. And if people hear it, great. And if they're moved, awesome.
How would you like people to find you and follow you?
Our website, Bandcamp. Look, Bandcamp could be sold tomorrow and turn evil. So I guess our website. Uh, yeah, just Spotify obviously is not a great financial situation, but you can go to Spotify app. I don't care. On Bandcamp, it's pay what you wish anyway. So we're not in this to make money or to be rich and famous. Um, and if we play a show come out, we play sometimes. Mostly it's word of mouth. If you trust someone, you trust them to not steer you wrong. And luckily we've had the best people like us and turned other best people onto us. So yeah.
Well, it's always a pleasure to be able to say thank you to someone who I think has contributed something that meant something to me. So thank you. Thank you for the work you've done. Thank you for hanging in there. And thank you for your optimism and for your insights in this interview that were personally meaningful to me. I appreciate it.
This is an amazing interview, and obviously you're incredible, and I could tell that every step of the way. So I appreciate you doing this. So, and don't lose your direction in terms of writing and inspiration.
Oh, don't worry, I'm as compulsive as you are. I'll be fine.
Good. Prove it. Send me some. Let's talk in a year.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, send me some stuff in a year or even a month, and just I want to make sure you're being fluid with your creativity.
All right. I'll take your dare. Better
Yeah.
be careful. All right. Thank you, Adam Elk, very much.
Appreciate it.
And thank you, audience, as always, for tuning in, listening to these conversations. I want to keep doing this in whatever world we're in. So if you like what you see, please let me know by liking. Please write me a comment. Please let me know who you'd like me to talk to. And if you want to talk to me, let's talk, and we'll see if we can get you on the show as well. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time.